On today's show, is there the possibility that Auston Matthews could ever catch Ovechkin and Evgeny Kuznetsov hockey playing days appear to be over?
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, I want to thank you for making this your first listen of the day. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about former Capital Evgeny Kuznetsov, and it appears that his hockey playing days are over, as his contract with SKA over in the KHL has been terminated. What's the latest with Kuzy? Then we'll talk about what is next for Alex Ovechkin. Listen, we know he caught and he passed Wayne Gretzky, but what else does Ovechkin have in store? But just to get it going here, talking about a player that could potentially catch Alex Ovechkin. And that's where we're at right now. That for the longest time, it's like, can Ovi catch Gretzky? When can he do it? Can he do it under his current contract? All of that. Well, that goalpost has been moved down the field a little bit, and now it's about who can catch Alex Ovechkin. And ultimately, what does Auston Matthews, the name that is mostly circulated about a potential player that could catch Alex Ovechkin, what are his thoughts on that? So we'll dive into that in this first segment here. So we're going to talk about it, of course. Alex Ovechkin achieving greatness by scoring number 895 against the Islanders. And it was a moment that has been building for the longest time. A lot of questions this season if he was going to be able to get it done, given the fact that he faced his most serious injury in his hockey playing days and missed the most time in his NHL playing days when he had that fractured leg. But he did it. And I think that he did it far sooner than I think a lot of us initially thought. Like I said, a lot of people are like, can he do it under his current contract? And then it got moved to, can he get it done this year? So it was exciting for him to get it done. But when you take a look at it, and as we think about what Alex Ovechkin has accomplished, is there any other NHL player that poses a threat of breaking Ovechkin's record? And there have been some different names circulated out there. I've heard Draisaitl, and, not to mention any of the younger talent that's going to work its way up. We have a lot of premier talent, Connor Bedard, Macklin Celebrini, not to mention any other young player that's rising up to the surface. But the name that is being circulated the most is Auston Matthews. So naturally, the question is, who could potentially challenge Ovi for the record? Now, one name that keeps popping up is Auston Matthews. And in a recent interview, Matthews faced the speculation with remarkable humility, saying, quote, "That's such a long way to go. I don't think I should even be in the conversation. This guy just broke the record. I'm so far away from that, and I think it shouldn't really be a focus on myself," unquote. Oh, and quite to the contrary, Mr. Auston Matthews, as Alex Ovechkin has faced these questions for the longest time. As it turns out, it's now your turn to answer the question of, when do you think you're going to be able to catch Ovechkin? I'm saying that, with a bit of satire there, but I think that it is possible. He is not, for me, if you're asking me, I don't think that he is a real threat, but, if you take a look at, the thought process around Alex Ovechkin, there were some people that thought that was a record that could never be broken, considering how long Gretzky has held on to that record. So I'm not going to say it's impossible, but my early thing on it is I'm going to say it's improbable. Now, the numbers themselves speak, but looking at the numbers, it's hard not to take Matthews seriously as a contender if you want to look at that. At just 27 years old, he's already racked up 398 goals in 623 career NHL games. Not too bad. Now, that's actually a better pace than Ovechkin at the same stage, who had 391 goals in his first 623 games. So, there is a bit of a disparity, but not a glaring one. And, the biggest thing Ovechkin has going for him is his health. He is that Russian machine that never breaks. We've already seen Auston Matthews face serious injury that up until this point, Alex Ovechkin has been pretty bulletproof, if you will. And at 39 years old, that's quite an accomplishment. Had you said this when he was 29 years old or even 31 years old, that would be one thing. But he is looking at the back nine of his career, and the biggest strong suit that he has, or one of them, is his maintained health. Now, projections show that if he stays healthy, he could reach 896 in about 1,400 games, which is fewer than Ovechkin's current total of 1,487 games played. So it's all about trajectory, and it's all about inside analytics. I know that a lot of fantasy players, I know that Dylan Strome, for example, is a guy that really likes to talk about hockey data and analytics and references Hockey DB and all those kind of things. That's what I'm saying. If you take a look at the numbers, they indicate that it is possible. And, maybe I am a bit biased because I'm a Capitals fan and I'm an Alex Ovechkin fan. And I know you're not supposed to be a fan of everyone, but the secret's out. I'm actually a fan of Alex Ovechkin. Now, taking a look at scoring ability on display, he's already showcased his scoring ability with 2 seasons of 60 or more goals. Now, giving credit where credit is due, that is most impressive, including an impressive 69 goals last season, setting a record during the salary cap era. So, all the Capitals fans out there, they're like, there's no way. Ovi's got this. He's not letting go of it. Life is not a carbon copy. That Wayne Gretzky did, in fact, hold on to that record for quite some time. That does not mean, however, that Ovechkin will hold on to it for as long. He might, but it'll be interesting to see. Now, an upcoming matchup, the stage is set for Matthews to add to his tally soon as the Maple Leafs are gearing up to face the reigning Stanley Cup champions on Tuesday as I record this. And this matchup is crucial for both teams in the fiercely competitive Atlantic Division. And, if there's one team, and I'm not telling you who to root for, of course, root for the Capitals. Of course, we want to win another Stanley Cup. But say something unforeseen does happen and the Capitals get eliminated early. I'm not saying it's possible, but I'm saying anything is possible. That if there is a team that's kind of due for another Stanley Cup, it is the Maple Leafs, as they have not won in quite some time. So a lot of premier talent. And like I've talked about the Toronto Maple Leafs before, it is kind of like an all-star team out on the ice. When you take a look at the roster, that's how sometimes analytics can be skewed. Because you take a look at the talent, the goal scorers, that on paper you think that the Maple Leafs would have won a Stanley Cup here somewhat recently. I guess I would say that net minding has been one of their biggest bugaboos for years. Now, that's rather here nor there. Currently, the Toronto Maple Leafs hold a 47-25-4 record with 98 points, while the Panthers trail slightly with a 44-29-4 record with 92 points. So, at the end of the day, both really great teams. And, you take a look at it, there's the possibility Florida is a team that can really turn on the Jets in the postseason. But as far as goals scored and anyone that can challenge Ovechkin, active player right now, as I record this, I think it is Auston Matthews. If you put, a gun to my head, that's what I would say. Dan, name one player that could catch Ovechkin. Auston Matthews. That's what I'm going with. Anyone else is kind of, out there, as far as trajectory and that kind of thing is concerned. But as far as Ovechkin is concerned, we know that record will be his for quite some time, as there is a lot of legwork for Auston Matthews to catch up to that, and ultimately speaks volumes about the humility of Auston Matthews. I know that the hockey scene in Toronto is put under the microscope. The spotlight is shined squarely on that team. If they're playing good, if they're playing poorly, they love their hockey in Toronto. So At the end of the day, I think that he is one of the biggest names of the Maple Leafs, of course. And like I say, if there is one player that's active right now that could potentially catch Ovechkin, I think it could possibly be Auston Matthews. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about what is next for Ovi. Listen, he's not going to just coast into the end of his contract. What we want from Alex Ovechkin is to knock this line drive as deep as he possibly can into the outfield and accumulate as many goals as possible. So it's that much more difficult for a guy like Auston Matthews to catch him. But what are the other goals for Alex Ovechkin? I'll discuss straight ahead. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep feeling fuller longer. Now, personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for those busy days, whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost. They're always my go-to snack. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. So get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can find me over on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. So what is next for the Great Eight? What other milestones is he edging closer to? If you think that for a minute that Alex Ovechkin is going to take his foot off the gas, I don't think that's the case at all. His big goal right now, I think, is not about personal goals. If you're asking me, I think it's about getting this team over the hump and winning a Stanley Cup, or making a deep push, if you will. He is so invested that what was said that he turned down an opportunity to be on the Tonight Show because he wanted to pursue his, the team's best interest for winning another cup. Now, to be clear here, in 2025, I don't think that the Tonight Show has quite the charm that it once did. But in any event, I think it speaks volumes to where Alex Ovechkin's head is at. But let's talk about other possible milestones that could be on the horizon for him. Now, you take a look at it. Now, while Ovechkin holds the regular season record, we can't overlook Gretzky's second record, the most goals scored in the NHL. And how many were those? I had to do some homework looking that up, with Wayne Gretzky scoring 1,016. Second, Alex Ovechkin, 967. Now, that is, a bit of a gap there, but I think he could edge closer to that. And with 5 regular season games left and a minimum of 4 playoff games set for the 25 season, Ovechkin has plenty of chance to close in on that gap. And if you take a look back, remember his incredible playoff run in 2018, he scored 15 goals in 24 games, earning the Conn Smythe and helping the Capitals win their first cup. So, what they say, what Tom Wilson says, what John Carlson says, what everyone should really say is never doubt the big man. And if you want to know who the big man is, of course, it is the Great Eight, Alex Ovechkin. So if he can replicate that kind of magic, shall we say, in this upcoming playoff series, he'd only need to get 34 goals in the 25-26 season. And if you take a look at the numbers that he's put up this season, it is possible. But it's going to get tight. The big one was Gretzky and the all-time goal scoring total. But what do we know is that there's not a lot of games left to play this year, that he is only contractually obligated to the Capitals for one more season after this current season. So it might be a little bit tight, and in the event that he doesn't sign some sort of extension. But as we broaden the lens, get a 30,000-foot view, the scope to professional hockey, which includes playoff games and international goals, the rankings shift a bit. So we're talking all things pro hockey. Jaromir Jagr, 1,106. Wayne Gretzky, 1,098. and Alex Ovechkin 1,042. Now, Yager recently took back the title for most pro goals after surpassing Gretzky earlier this year. You take a look at it with Ovechkin's background in the Russian league. He's also eyeing these totals as we head into the 24-25 season. So, you take a look at it. It is a bit of a moving target, if you will, about if Alex Ovechkin will come ahead in that regard. But like I said, anything is possible. And another noteworthy possibility is that if you take a look at it, here's another noteworthy possibility. If the IOC and the IIHF lift Russia's ban from international play, Ovi might get a chance to compete in the 2026 Winter Olympics, which could be pivotal for his quest for that elusive gold medal. And, I don't want to get into it, but just based on the international climate, I don't know if it's possible. But, in the event that it is possible, that would be another feather in his hat. Now, let's talk records. Ovechkin is currently tied for the most 50 goal seasons in NHL history. And if you want to take a look at the most in NHL history, Ovechkin 9, Gretzky 9, and Mike Bossy 9. So again, there are a lot of different milestones that he could knock down. And with 5 games left this season, and currently, as I record this, sitting at 42 goals, Ovi will need to keep his scoring pace. He might just hit the 10th career 50-goal season. Is it possible? Of course, as I talked about, him catching and passing Gretzky this season seemed like an out there thing, and there are games left to play. Is it possible? Yes. Is he really going to have to keep the pedal to the metal? Yes. Now, it's hard not to think that if he hadn't missed 16 games earlier in the season, he might have already secured this record. Now, that's when you get into the weeds, woulda, coulda, shoulda, those kind of things. There's a possibility that if he hadn't gotten injured, he may have slowed up in goal scoring. So we don't know. It's always one of those things. If this had not happened, maybe that would have happened. And you can drive yourself nuts looking at certain metrics. Now, in terms of multi-goal games, Ovechkin ranks second in the NHL with 179. He's just 10 behind Gretzky's record of 189. His recent performance, including a 2-goal game to tie Gretzky at 894, demonstrates he still has it. So you take a look at it, the milestones that he's knocking down, I think, like I say, a lot of these he could probably get. And we're talking other advanced ones. I'm talking career hits and assists. Ovechkin is also approaching the record for most career hits in the NHL, currently sitting at 3,735. He's in third place, trailing Cal Clutterbuck and Matt Martin. Now, this season, he's recorded 102 hits in 61 games, all while managing his style post-injury. And that's the surprising thing about Ovechkin is, if you had asked me, he started the season much better than he did the season before. There was questions on how he would have started this season. Well, the proof's in the pudding. He started very well right up to that injury. And then the question is sometimes from injuries, you don't come back 100% or you don't come back 100% right away. We didn't see any leg in production in Alex Ovechkin in his return. So you take a look at it, a lot is at stake with 1 year left under contract. He has an impressive trajectory, looking not only to break records, but also bolster his lead in the multiple categories that I mentioned here, including most points by left winger, most shots on goal, and the game-winning goal total. And all of this at 39 years old. That is what is impressive. All the things that you hear. Father Time is undefeated. And at some point, it's got to slow down. If you want a good example, take a look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady played top-level hockey or top-level QB in the NFL into his 40s. So anything is possible. But a lot of times when you start talking about one GOAT to the other, people talk about Brady, talk about Ovechkin, that ultimately I don't think that Alex Ovechkin is going to play as late in his pro career as Tom Brady did. Possible, anything's possible, but it is my hunch that he hangs up the skates after his current contract. possibility, the rumblings out there that he plays 1 or 2 seasons with Dynamo, anything's possible. But I think that when he wraps up his NHL career with the Capitals, he's going to have quite a trophy case. And on top of that trophy case is, of course, him catching Gretzky and passing Gretzky. But there's other trophies underneath of that. How many will he accomplish? That is the question. All right, so coming up here after the break, we continue to talk Russian players, and the future of a former Capital Evgeny Kuznetsov is in question as his contract in the KHL has been terminated. What's the outlook for Kuzy? I'll discuss straight ahead.
Do you have trouble sleeping? If so, you're not alone. That used to be me, lacking rest, tossing and turning. I was late for meetings. I never felt like myself. That's until I found Bare Mattress. Bare Mattress and their sleep recovery technology helped me fall asleep faster as well as enjoy deeper sleeps. I felt like myself again, and you can too. Bare Mattress knows that every sleeper is different. That's why they have their sleep quiz on their website that finds you your perfect match. As a side sleeper, I matched with the Elite Hybrid mattress, and I've been telling everyone in my life they have to try Bare Mattress risk-free. You can sleep on your Bare Mattress up to 120 nights, and if you're not getting the best sleep of your life, you can get it refunded. They'll pick it up with absolutely no hassle. So go to baremattress.com and use my promo code LOCKEDONNHL at checkout to get 40% off site-wide. This offer is not available anywhere else. You have to use my promo code on the very last page of checkout to get this discount. That's baremattress.com. Use my promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 40% off site-wide. Baremattress.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL.
All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The best way that you can help grow this show, Locked On Capitals, is to subscribe and comment anything down below. All right, in this final segment here, we're talking of former Capital Evgeny Kuznetsov. And I know I'm going to hear some comments. I do every time I bring up Kuzy. All right, he hasn't played for the Capitals for a long time, but still a polarizing player, a guy that a first-round pick, a guy that had, high expectations for his time with the Capitals. And now it appears that his hockey playing days in general are over, as it has been said that his contract with SKA in the KHL has been terminated. And it's not to do exclusively with play on the ice. It has to do with his health at the end of the day. So let's dive into the latest with the former Capital Evgeny Kuznetsov. And the big news from the KHL today that involves Evgeny Kuznetsov. SKA St. Petersburg announced that they've mutually agreed to terminate his contract. And it's been a tough road for Kuzy with his time with the Capitals, being in the Players Assistance Program, going out to Carolina, that contract getting terminated, going over to Russia. And I don't, need to go specifically into his personal problems, but if you're a fan of his, you know what they are. And that he's had demons that he's had to try to overcome. He is the guy that said, I could be the greatest player on the Capitals or in the NHL if I chose to be. He just never chose to be. And we saw glimpses of greatness. We'll never forget his many contributions in 2018, especially in the Stanley Cup push there. But it has been a bumpy ride in his pro hockey days. This follows, like I say, a series of up and downs who spent 11 seasons with the Capitals before being traded to Carolina at last year's trade deadline. Now, in an interesting move, Kuznetsov decided to terminate his NHL contract over the summer to join SKA in Russia. And you take a look at it, Kuzy walked away from a boatload of money. You have a lot of money when you can walk away from that kind of money and say, I just want to play in a place I'm comfortable, I guess, over in Russia. Now, unfortunately, his last season with the Caps was less than stellar. He struggled with consistency and was even placed on waivers. And it's been quite some time since that happened. I'm going to be honest with you, and still kind of boggles the mind that I think back to when he first joined the team, that there was such high hope that he was going to be, like a Russian player, maybe similar to like what Ovechkin was, that he was going to be the answer at the second line center position. And, we saw that from, at points in his career. But ultimately, I think that fell short of what we had all hoped for. Now, he also took away some time away from the ice to participate in the NHLPA's player assistance program, like I talked about. And, I never hold that against a player. It's for different reasons. It can be substance abuse. It can be depression, these kind of things that he wanted to get right what was wrong in his life. And I don't think any of us can ever fault that for him. Kuznetsov returned to Russia with high hopes, signing a 4-year deal with SKA. Now, like I said, it doesn't, his play over in Russia wasn't what he had hoped and was less than stellar, but he has also faced some health issues as well. He opened up with Sports Express about some of the challenges he faced, revealing that rheumatoid arthritis had impacted his performance, leading to sleepless nights and frequent medical treatments. And, you see this with certain players that are on the back nine of their career. Backstrom, Oshie, now Kuznetsov in that mix, that, there's some of these, are degenerative conditions just based on, you put your body through a tremendous amount of stress being a pro hockey player. And, you take a look at it, despite the fresh start, his first season back in the KHL didn't go as planned. In 39 regular season games, he recorded 12 goals, 25 assists for 37 points with a plus-minus rating of plus 13. Now, he also tallied a goal and 2 assists in 6 playoff games. So what does that mean for Kuzy in the future? It's a bit unclear, I think, suffice to say, who's racked up 575 points during his time in the NHL. So at the end of the day, still a really accomplished player. It's not like he was a total bust. Consistency was the bugaboo of Kuzy. Now, if you want to remember that spectacular empty net goal he scored earlier in the season, that moment caught a lot of attention, especially while he faced some tough chants from rival fans. However, reports towards the end of the season suggest that he was, quote, extremely doubtful, unquote, to return from the playoffs, but he surprised everyone by participating in every game of SKA's postseason run. And you take a look at his contract. It was lucrative. He walked away from a lot. Kuznetsov's move to SKA came after he and the Hurricanes, if we remember, mutually agreed to terminate his NHL contract last season. He signed what was a lucrative 4-year deal with SKA worth about 92 million rubles per season with added performance incentives. Unfortunately, he fell short on several of those incentives this season, which included hefty bonuses for scoring and team success. So, you take a look at him. I think that the Russians probably thought they could get more out of Kuznetsov, as it turns out, with the rheumatoid arthritis and just kind of, I think, him being in a certain mental space that I think maybe his best days are behind him as far as playing in pro hockey is concerned. Now, I wish him nothing but the best. If there's a way for him to rally and find his former glory, then I would be loving it. But a lot of questions about the future of Evgeny. Again, at one time, there was such high hopes surrounding him that he was going to be a true game changer for the Capitals. And there was the thought that maybe a change of scenery going out to Carolina could be what the doctor ordered. As it turns out, there are a lot of things, I think, underneath the surface for Kuzy, whether it be mental or health conditions, that your heart has to kind of go out to him at the end of the day. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On NHL, as they have you covered 5 days a week, covering all of the NHL, available wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.